Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that'll have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. The Uncanny X-Men 185 from 1984. Rogue. Public Enemy #1, as we get this cover here in which she is holding on to a fallen and beaten Storm. This is the cover to the classic X-Men or X-Men Classic here that was done by Paul Smith. The title of the story is called Public Enemy, and we start in the Pentagon on a view screen, and we got Rogue. And it's kind of funny seeing her in yellow when, for the most part, during the 80s, it's green. And so we get an introduction. This is Henry Peter Garrick, and written by Chris Claremont, John Romita Jr. and Dan Green, rest in peace, Dan Green. Tom Rozakowski, Glynis Wein, and Nascenti, Jim Shooter. So essentially the same team since John Romita Jr. take over, minus the editor. Louis Simonson is gone here. So, all right. And so we're going to get a recap. I have an X-Men playlist. Feel free to check that out. I'm not going to read all this. This is all just for the reader. I love the screen tones being applied on his suit. And so here's the weapon that they got from Forge, the last issue, that is supposed to get rid of her powers. So, all right. And so she'll basically become a regular person. And then this is Mystique, who is undercover here. Nobody knows that she is Mystique here, so she interrupts here, and Peter Garrich, or is it Garrich, says, "This is private briefing, Dr. Darkholm. You have no business here." And she says, "I'll be more than happy to leave once I have Forge's neutralizer." And then Valerie Cooper here says, "Raven, calm down." And Mystique says, "The blazes I will. What project's top secret? Sorry, that project's top secret. Garrett shouldn't even know of the gun's existence, much less possess the only functioning prototype." And he says, "I have authorization, Doctor." And she goes back and says, "It's untested, you fool. We have no idea what the effects will be." And Valerie says, "Then this would seem an ideal opportunity to learn." And Raven is like, "What, Val, was this your idea?" And Valerie Cooper says, "I'm sorry, Raven. I understand your feelings, but Rogue's a killer, and this weapon may be the only means of safely dealing with her. If it doesn't work, we're no worse off than before. But if it does, think of the ramifications. We no longer have to live in terror of supervillains. One zap, and their powers are gone. The threat removed." And Mystique says, "I'll protest." And she says, "Waste of time. This policy decision came from the Oval Office. Like it or not, Raven, you'll just have to live with it." So, all right. And so now we are in Professor Xavier's school. And we have here Rachel Summers, who has somehow traveled back in time, but she is in the wrong past. This is not her past. Of course, when you travel, you make changes, so the future's always malleable. And so Storm comes in and says, "Professor, forgive my interruption, but Rogue is gone." And Xavier says, "Are you certain, Storm? When did this happen?" "Sometime last night." And so she says here, and I like the screen tone here. "Her bed has not been slept in, and the closet is empty. She left no note." And Xavier says, "Excuse us a moment, Rachel." "Sure, Professor, I understand. We'll continue our session upon my return." And Xavier says, "I can't sense Rogue's thoughts. The plate that places her beyond the New York metropolitan area. These past weeks, ever since her encounter with Michael Rossi, Rogue has become increasingly tense and unstable, rebuffing all my attempts to help." And he says, "Your concern and distress are obvious." Why? Oh, I'm sorry. I should have just continued here. I'm sorry. It was this way. So, all right. Oh, this is a nice panel here. Love the coloring here. And Storm says, "Evidently, she managed to hide her condition from you. And since Rossi is away on a mission, I have been unable to get his explanation," Storm says. "Rogue turned to the X-Men because her powers were driving her insane. We thought she was getting better, but now I'm desperately afraid she may be suffering a relapse," says Storm. And Xavier says, "Follow me to the lab. We'll use my cerebral sight scanner to try to find her." So, all right. And so here we have Rachel here. And she says here, she thinks here in the thought balloons, Rogue was one of the X-Men who rescued me from Selene, but I don't remember her. So what else is new? The more I see of this era, the less my memories mean anything. I tumbled myself back in time to save my future from destruction. I never dreamt I'd end up in the wrong past. I wonder how deep the differences run. There's an entry for Cyclops, but it's in Alaska. What's he doing there? She asks. And so she calls and says, hello, this is Scott Summers. Nobody says this is the full name on the phone. Is there anyone there? And, of course, that is his daughter. And, she doesn't speak anything. She's crying here. And Madeline's like, "What's up, hun?" No answer. Probably a crank, meaning a crank call. Or a wrong number, and she hangs up. And once she hangs up, she's like, "Daddy, Mom," but she never said anything. So, all right. So here we have Raven, and goes in now, and we have Destiny here. And Mystique says, "Irene, I wasn't expecting you, but I'm glad you're here. It has been a brutal day." And Destiny says, "Rogue is in grave danger." "I know," says Mystique. "Val Cooper and Harry Garrett want to make an example of her to prove the government can handle super criminals without the aid of heroes like the Avengers. Forge Neutralisis may give them that means to do it." And Destiny asks, "What are your intentions, Raven?" And Mystique says, "I'm really not sure. Rogue's powers are the cause of all her misery. She might not be better. Of all her misery. Might she not be better off without them? She could live a normal life. She'd have a chance at happiness." Destiny says, "And of course, be free to return to you." And Mystique says, "That's so bad. I love her as my own daughter, Irene. Her place is with me. This is an opportunity to help in a way Xavier can't." And Destiny says, "Have you the right to make such a decision without Rogue's knowledge or consent? She is a grown woman, Raven, well able to take responsibility for her own life. This choice must be hers." And Destiny says, "You're the precog, Destiny. You can see," in quotations, "the futures. Tell me which course of action is best for Rogue." And Destiny says, "I wish I could, but these past few days my perceptions have become jumbled, as if the very fabric of time itself has been rent asunder." That's because of Phoenix here. "I'm sorry, Raven. The only advice I can offer is that you follow the dictates of your heart." And so we have an airplane here, and they let us know that this mission would normally be handled by S.H.I.E.L.D., but they're fighting the dire rise, and that is in Issues of Rum, which I have not covered, but these are the best people that were available. And Valerie asks if they're going to use the scanner to find Rogue. He says no, the module is too limited, and she's now essentially a hybrid between human and alien because, of course, Captain Marvel, because she absorbed her. He says they already have a general fix on her position, and the closer they get, they'll refine contact until they have her. And Valerie says, I want her alive, Henry. And Garrett says, we'll do our best, ma'am, but no guarantees. And so here we are in Dallas, Texas, and Forge is saying, she's done what? And he's upset here. You can see him throwing this here, breaking it. He says, our agreement from the beginning, Raven, was that my weapons were not to be used under any circumstances until I released them. What can I say, Forge? Val changed the rules. I protested. I screamed bloody murder and was told, in effect, to mind my own business. And Forge says, doesn't she realize it's untested? And Mystique says, the impression I received is that she doesn't much care. Her only concern is capturing Rogue. And Forge says, Raven, I have no idea whether the gun removes powers temporarily or permanently, or what might happen to that person in the process. It could cause incalculable damage. It might even kill them. And so Mystique says, that's why I phoned, Forge. No one in authority will listen to me. I'm hoping, praying you have better luck. And Forge says, if I don't pray, the government can find itself another inventor. Oh, sorry, if I don't, Ray. And Forge calls here. He leaves in this airplane and says, I want to speak to the president. So, and now we are in Mississippi, and we can see it's hot and humid here. And here we have Rogue going into the water, which is probably putrid, full of, I was going to say sharks, full of crocodiles, but of course she's got superpowers, and so all these people, of course, are loving seeing her because she's attractive here, and so she's relaxing, enjoying, hoping that this lasts. And suddenly here you see a shadow here. I love the screen tone to give the shadow, and then over here, and she says, hello, Storm. And Storm says, can I join you? And she's like, it's a free country, but don't come too close. So Storm says it's a lovely spot, and says this is a spot that I would hide out as a kid, and felt normal, and watched the boats and stuff like that. And this is where she learned about her power and kissed her first boy when keeled over, which was covered in classic X-Men, which I have covered that story. So she goes, I thought I killed him. Then I thought I was going crazy. I heard voices in my head, saw memories I knew weren't mine. They were Cody's. But when I tried to shut them out, I couldn't. So I ran and ran around. After a while, the voices went away, and I was myself again. So I've been running ever since. Storm says, you don't have to hide anymore. And she says, she's been at Xavier School for months. Nothing's changed. She feels that she's worse off. She doesn't know where her loyalties are. And Storm says, we are your friends, Rogue. Is there nothing we can do? And she laughs here. She says, listen to yourself, girl. You hear what you're saying? Of course, if you remember when Rogue tried to join the X-Men, Storm was vehemently against that. As I mentioned, I have a playlist for the X-Men, for the X-Universe. I also have a New Mutants playlist. So it's been covered. Basically, what she had done to Captain Marvel, where she took over her powers. Of course, that was not under her control, and they were friends. So, Storm says she's got a sense of honor and decency, but you can see here she gets a little bit upset. It says, give me a break. She's now having to spend her time as two people, feeling thoughts that aren't her own. Decency has nothing. This is cruel. She's very angry here, and Storm asks, why do you lash out so? Do you trust no one? Storm asks. And she says, how can I? How can anyone trust me, for that matter, when the slightest physical contact might destroy him? And Storm says, Rogue, has every exercise of yours proven, sorry, has every exercise of your power been an act of violence? Has no one ever given himself of his own free will? And she says, don't be stupid. It's kind of a living death. Nobody wants that, not even for a moment. And then he says, no, that ain't quite true. There was Wolverine last year in Tokyo. To save my life, he let me absorb his healing powers. Would you like me? Would you like to see the world through my eyes? And gives her hand. She says no as she takes the glove off. And, Rogue says, hey, remember what happened at the Pentagon? And Storm says, I was fighting you then with every ounce of my being. Today I'm giving myself freely without reservation. And Rogue's like, what if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? And Storm says, I'm prepared to take the risk. And Rogue says, I'm afraid. And Storm basically says, I am too. And so she takes it, and Storm falls, and look at Rogue and says, Goddess, I never imagined the world could be so beautiful. So she has absorbed Storm's personality, the power, how she sees everything, the wind. You can see here she's using a little bit of her power, creating the rain, creating a little tornado there. So, Rogue says, oh, I just want a little bit more, but then she says, no, that's wrong. And suddenly she is shot in the back with that energy ray here. And of course, the federal police are there, and they go, we have a warrant for your arrest. And so Storm, of course, is out, and she can't abandon her. She's going to try to get out, but you can see here she's dazed, confused, ends up falling. You can see here the soldiers. She throws this little branch at them. She's got Storm's powers here. I like how they do this here. And they're going to shoot her again, but they miss. And she's using Storm's power, sending the vehicles to them. You can see that she is holding her own with Storm's powers here. And even nearby, this guy, they're like, oh my God, it's a hurricane. So, and Rogue realizes she has created a very real storm, and she can't control it here. So she is going to try to see if she can slow this down, and she realizes she can't control it. And so Storm has awakened, and she goes, be calm, Storm. Be calm, Rogue. I am here. So Storm is going to basically get everything back to normal. She brought her clothes, and so you can see here in silhouette that she puts them on here. So, all right, and they rescue the tub here, and so here we go. So after they save that, you can see Forge has arrived here, and Gary says, splendid, those muties are heading right for us. And so they're still trying to, and Peter's gonna recalibrate it now to full power, and she's gonna shoot, and Forge tries to stop him and says don't, and instead of hitting Rogue, Storm pushes her out of the way and hits a Storm, and suddenly you see Storm's power kind of go haywire. Look at this. Now, this is part of the reason why Chris Claremont wanted to use this issue to demonstrate Storm's power and all that kind of stuff, because we're now going to go into a era of X-Men where Storm is powerless. And she's going to be powerless for a while. until the mutant until Fall of the Mutants, which is like X-Men 225. So for a while here, Storm is gonna have a 0 powers. So Forge is like, no, 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 and he goes, "There's Storms, but I can't see any sign of the other one, Rogue. She fell in the mid-channel. The current must have swept her away. She caught the full brunt of Storm's power discharge and the secondary explosion of the tug's fuel tanks. If she survives, it'll be a miracle," as Forge swims to her. And Garrett's just like, "Oh, thank goodness you're okay," and gives him his hands. And Forge kicks it away. "I can make my own, Garrett. I don't want your help. I hope you're proud, mister. You shot the wrong woman." And Garrett's just like, "She was aiding and abetting a fugitive." And Forge is like, "They were trying to save their lives. They could have escaped, but they didn't. Whatever Rogue did, she and especially Storm are supposedly innocent until proven guilty. That's the law. Only for Storm, a trial whatever that word is. Thanks to you, she's already condemned. You stripped her of her power. You destroyed her," as he is quite angry here. And so, there's no way she can ever be made whole again. Outlaws they may be in the eyes of the government, but the X-Men always fought for humanity. Your stupidity has changed that. You may single-handedly have turned them from our defenders to our deadliest enemies. And so here we have the Dire Wraiths, who again are from ROM, but they're going to make a little bit, Chris Claremont's going to feature them in the X-Men. And so they see that he has used the weapon that was meant for them, and realizes now that they must kill Forge. And our next issue is Life Death, which is by Chris Claremont and Barry Windsor Smith. So Uncanny X-Men 185, Chris Claremont, John Romita Jr. with Dan Green. Like and subscribe. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this. Goodbye.